Hello, everyone. Welcome to this second and last part of the conversation that we already started. The other day, if you guys remember, we had a conversation about autonomy versus freedom. And the conversation was long, and in that conversation, we discussed a lot of different ideas. We had some disagreements and different ways of looking at the same topic. And in the final part of the conversation, we kind of had two clear opinions, two different opinions about this same topic. On one side, we had Roberto saying there is actually a lawgiver who gives us freedom, and he thinks that's where freedom comes from. And on the other side, we have Umar, who says, well, freedom might be there, but then we are the lawmakers as a society. We make decisions and we apply the laws on other people. So that was the final part of the conversation, and we said that there will be a second part. Now, this is the second part. We're doing the second part with my brothers, Roberto, Umar. As usual, I'll give them a couple of minutes to introduce themselves, and then after that, we'll start the conversation. So I'll start with Roberto this time.
Thank you there, Omar. It is my honor to talk with you, to learn, but also to share my opinions.
Right.
Maybe last time I mentioned about a very direct question: who is the giver of liberty? Was the question, or who is the giver of the law?
Right.
In any case, my answer was there is a God who gives it. Maybe my friend wanted to go to a direction of let's focus on it exists. Do not approach the theological perspective and let's intellectually talk about maybe rules existing, or freedom existing, or autonomy existing. Now, how we deal with it. But I still maybe emphasized or focused on this perspective in which I believe that actually there is a law that is eternal, that maybe this time I'm going to say more points about it, but mainly talking about this law, I said that I called it the law of liberty. And
Nice.
boom.
Boom. Yes, that's where the conversation kind of exploded. There's a law of liberty. It's always there. And Omar had a different opinion about this, so I'll give Omar the chance to introduce himself first.
Okay, all right. Very pleased to join you in the second session.
Thank you.
I think we had very entertaining, discussions, intellectually speaking, and even independently paying. You know? I think like last time we talked more on not only on the semantic process. I think not only we rely on the definitions and we rely on the other general views about the discussions, but I think today we can go more than the generalization. I think I believe that there is more than the symmetrical perspective. I mean, like there are dimensions when you look at the autonomy, and there is when you look at the freedom, for example. The final part that we come is that there is a law of freedom or the law of liberty, perhaps that can free human from maybe from themselves, maybe from the autonomy itself, maybe from I don't know, maybe from the context of being humanly there. But I would say is that still I will gradually is there, because the context of, or semantically when you look at the idea of the autonomy we say like self-governor, self-dictator, we said a self-legislator, and we said a let's say lawgiver to self. So that's meaning that every derivation is within the autonomy. The human context, the human self, that sound mean that I have to make a decision by myself. I have to make everything processing through myself. So is it that leading to the context of saying that it moving us to the idea of we are going to be free from ourselves, within ourselves, or we're going to be free from the external forces. In other dimensions, that the freedom, it would say that we, in some ways or somewhere, let's say, there's kind of objective good, you know. But I'm still slithering on the context of, is the autonomy accepts the inter-subjective views? When I say the inter-subjective views, it means, like, for example, you point for me something that this is bad, subjectively you're saying, and as a human being, do I look at the other subjective views as my own perspective to see that those are the good opinion and being rejected, or let's say projected for me, are they good or bad, for example? So I still I'm kind of bemusing in the context of saying there is rules that can project the human life and human society. I believe, yes, there are constructions that existed within the society, but those existed to free us. If it free us, then free from what? It's already, yes, theologically, the human, they don't make themselves. I believe that. So the self-creation, it does not negate the concept of saying that there is no God or there is a God, for example. I think there is a God, there is the creator, there is the supreme power probably there, but I'm not sure about saying like everything it's watched at surveillance and the rules are the part of that mission or something like that. So I think it's a very general perspective out there. So I think that we go and move there in that context to make more other sessions, I think, on this context.
But like when you say self autonomy, or maybe autonomy is like being a self dictator, like being a dictator maybe over yourself. You make decisions, you take care of everything, and at the same time you believe that you're just part of this whole complicated thing, this whole complicated universe where you didn't create yourself. You were created, and you're just here exercising some forces that were given to you. Now, isn't that like the same thing that Roberto is saying? Because he's saying there is a law giver who gives you liberty, the law of liberty, and you're exercising that liberty, but with limits. Like you're not the one who's making the decisions. The decisions are already there. You're just exercising them. So like, I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying here.
No, I can see. I think even I can reflect the earlier views. We were saying the multiplicity of the choices perhaps can help us to see things. But I think my concept is that perhaps in a society we have rules. These rules perhaps are meant to be instructed theologically from the God perspective to the humans. And so the supreme power necessarily have to know everything, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent in general sense. So in that context, am I in the idea that these things for the well-being of the self itself? I'm saying like, I'm speaking in a very, let's say semantic views on the definition of the autonomy, because the nature of the autonomy, it rejects every external forces, because the freedom accepts all the, let's say, external forces, or defined from the external forces, the freedom is. But autonomy is much different than that. So when we want to move beyond that, I think, I would say, is it autonomy good? Let's have idea of saying like, is it autonomy good for the humans? Should human being autonomous? I would say the earlier perspective, they say like, once the education, the capacities, knowledge, experience, ideas existed with the self, able to make those choices and master them in very good ways, I think why not to give a chance for the human self to make their call, and then there would be a punishment for it. Like, for example, we say like, we die, for example. So what is the after death? Based on the belief perspectives, there would be maybe life, or let's say then probably there would be a resurrection time or processing to see what has happened in life, or maybe in a mundane level to say that we humans, we are going to abide the rules, and then if someone broke those rules, we're going to be punished, for example. So is it that kind of punishment? Is it punishing the self or not? So I'm saying is that autonomy, let's say it will be severely bad when the self is not a conscious.
So there is a condition for somebody to be autonomously good.
Yes.
So if you're autonomous but you're not conscious, then you're definitely going to hurt yourself and hurt others, right?
Yes.
Roberto, what do you think? I'm sorry. So first, can you elaborate a little bit on the law of liberty, the point that you were making earlier, and also what do you think? Omar says yes. Okay, what I understand from Omar is this: liberty or freedom is like freeing yourself from the outside forces. So like, yeah, you're here, but then there are other forces that are external, and so when you're free, that means you're free from these external forces. But then autonomy is kind of inside you, but then to exercise your autonomy in a good way, you have to be aware of yourself and you have to be conscious. Otherwise, you won't be able to exercise your autonomy in a good way. What do you think?
Interesting. First, I can say that the law of liberty is a law that is eternal and that comes from God. As God is eternal, there is an eternal law which I can call it is a transcript or is a description of how is God. So these laws, or I call it law, represents what, according with his how he is, his character, he wants that the beings that he created live by. So this is the basic definition. Now, in terms of autonomy, maybe I have a different opinion, but only in some sense, I think. I think that even if there are options, as we said last time, if even in terms of the law, there is a law that regulates and shows us what is good, how we should behave, even from that line of or on the perspective I even presented last time. This law is for our good, and following it, obeying it, we are going to avoid
any evil outcome.
Consequences, evil or actually the problem that we can see today. But there is more information about it that is definitely very, very needed to explain this point of view. But before that, I was saying about what I consider is probably a little different from Omar's perspective, is that this law or these regulations that exist and maybe are from some, or maybe some
Source?
people in the past have considered that there is no freedom if there are regulations or some precepts that I need to follow. Even from without going deep on that subject, I think that the fact that we have freedom of choice, free will, we can exercise the autonomy. So it is not necessarily excluding external forces. To have freedom and also to
have autonomy.
To have autonomy or to exercise the autonomy that we have.
I think, if I may, yeah, I think to have a freedom is to have autonomy. This is the stage. This is just like beginning of things can operate, you know. But what will happen, for example, like how human rules are existed, or how human come to the idea of we need to live in a society, we need to organize our societies, we need to come and define what is good to the community, and community can follow the instructions. We need to come up and find an idea of this is good, this is bad, or justice, or something like that. Those kind of concepts, I think those are existed not from the perspective of freedom. Those existed from the perspective of the autonomy, meaning that if human, they don't have the self-independent intellectual capacity to able to view things from a different dimensions, the rules cannot become. So that's why I think if you look at the number of let's say those people who are intellectually, scientifically much open, and even they are more humane, I think those are more in the idea of the autonomous levels rather than the freedom. Because freedom is just, I think, for example, like saying that more choice is a more freedom. I think this is the illusions, because this is escaping from one option to another options. There is no sense of mastering what is being taken in the beginning. That's why in earlier what I was saying is that this doesn't make any sense when you say like the more we have the options, the more we have the freedoms. So I say like, okay, what is the point of having more choices, for example? So we come back to the concept of mastering the one choice and then proceeding to it, to transcending it and go beyond the normal level of that option to maybe the level of implementations or achieving the concept itself, perhaps the choice that you take it. I think this is more need to be subjectively and objectively good point. I think this would be motivated not only in the context of freedom, but also on autonomously existed. But let's have a clear, more outer understanding of the concept of saying autonomy and the freedom, for example. Assuming like, let's say political perspective or the politician ideas, for example. If we say like society has to be governed by politicians, so the politician is the small groups. So I would regard it as the autonomous levels, you know. So meaning that they impose their common interest to the individuals, so they would drive us. And I think this will be more problems because maybe those politicians, they need to focus on their own party interests. They want to focus on
their own autonomy.
You could call it their own autonomy, their own interests, and then they want to force in the society members to follow or abide with their interests. So, do you think it's not good or bad? I think it's bad in this context. So that's why we need to look at the idea of saying that, like having an autonomous level itself. If the individual, they are not autonomously intellectual, I think it would be a problem. So, but do we need to take one dimension and carry on? I think most of them need to be balanced. The concept is the balancing levels, because we have the moral education, we have a civic education, civil awareness, and the freedom. I think even there more on the social liberty, more there, because we need to liberate the society itself from the bleak level of let's say intervening to the maybe social problems, or perhaps there are some evil that existed within the society context. For example, fighting against the corruption, maybe fighting against the evil or bad deeds or something like that. But in the general concept is that to today's level, for example, let's have another perspective about technological influence, for example, in autonomous level. If we say, for example, algorithms. So the 2 or 3 people autonomously, they design something and they influence the entire community, perhaps. So
the entire globe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if this is good. Like we all drive by the social media algorithms to a specific direction, a specific means. If that's good, you will disagree, and you will disagree. I think it's obviously that meaning that if you look at that, the freedom would be like an open subject that it allows this kind of sense could have to be existed. But the antagonistic view on these ideas, I think the autonomy will go against it, because autonomy.
But I actually find it hard to understand here, because like on one hand you say it's very important for anyone to be autonomous.
Yes.
And also it's very important for everyone to be very cautious. Like everybody should be really aware of their autonomy, and then they should be autonomous. Like before you should be autonomous, you should be aware of what autonomy is. But then who is the judge? Like, who is the judge who will say, well, you're aware enough, and now you can be autonomous, and your autonomy is good. Like your exercise of autonomy is good. Like, for example, you talked about two people creating an app, which is going to influence like the entire globe. Those two individuals, they probably think that they're aware enough, and maybe even their society regards them as people who are really educated, people who are really doing a good thing for their society, and so they're creating this to assist their society, to help their society. And other societies in other parts of the world, for example, they might find that really offensive, and they feel like they're being attacked. They feel like they're not even in need of this. But because they don't have any other options, this is the only option. This is the only option, and it's being imposed on them. So first, who is the judge? And second, like at what level can we say this person is aware enough, and this person is conscious enough, and now they can have their autonomy?
Yeah, I think this is good. I think in earlier time even we attacked this question indirectly, but I would say I think the sanctimonious level of the self, moral high ground on the self itself, I think we human, we don't have that capacity to say that there is a self has all the options, or let's say all the capacities that are able to make all the calls, or the choices can be good and bad, can able to master all of them, or can decide like this is morally good, or this isn't good and this is bad, for example. I think autonomy, if you put it on the table, autonomy on the context of a subjective level, autonomy would be intellectually weak in the objective views. I hope you can see that, meaning that when it let's say autonomy is intellectually weak to the concept of over collective common good, or the commonality of the social interest, for example, because autonomy will have a disagree views on the common good on the context of a society. Autonomy will say, individual, you master your home. Nobody should point for you to master what you need to do inside your home, for example, or within yourself. So that's meaning that autonomy is kind of giving the human the more independent multiplicity of the choices, where call yourself, because by the definition of we human, you're making the point of free will and the faith, for example. Free will, if you believe in a free will, that's a free autonomous perspective, I think. So because the free will exists, that meaning the autonomy existed. Free will meaning I have to make my own choices. I have to choose what I think is good. So the autonomy will say that the same thing, you have to choose what is good for you. That meaning you already have a prior, clear, moral high ground, which is that able to tell you that this is supremely good choice, you choose it among the others, and you will be responsible on that choices, perhaps. But if you say like, the free will is itself, it's not the free, and it has to have, their rules have to be existed to free the free will itself, then I think we are in a box where we can't see the end, and we can't see the beginning of things, and this will be more complex, more challenging view of life and understanding things. But it's obviously that the self itself, the autonomy of the self itself, is not a self-creations. You know, if you look at it.
So are you saying both the society and the individuals are the judges of their autonomy, of autonomy in general? I mean, I really okay. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, but then, I mean, I can, go outside, or I can start using my autonomy and hurt others, and say, well, this is my autonomy. I'm actually exercising my free will, my autonomy, and I'm doing this because I think this is good for myself.
Yeah.
Now, somebody else might say, no, this is not good because it's hurting others. It's hurting the society. It's hurting me. Here we need a judge. Like, we need a clear line. I mean, on Roberto's side, I think the judge is God. I'm not sure if Robert.
No. I think if I may, I think we kind of having a very over finalization views with me and Roberto. So we're concluding to say like, yes, commonly we agree that there is a God, there is supreme power there. But we are talking about the intervention of that power or the natural power, because when you say human self, do it create its own rules and policies. Human self in the society, it has to be exist to a way that to abide the collective rules even. But those collective rules sometimes go wrong. That's what I'm saying. So that's why there's a necessity of the choice of having the autonomy existed, because we have example of a politician. We have example of the people, technologically, they can create something that can drive entire human society or the humans in general. So if we just like follow things, always we just abide with the rules and process. Abiding rule, I don't mean like saying is always bad. No, we need to abide what is the good rules, you know.
But,
Okay.
No. Wait. Again, that kind of gets back to my point here, which is like the good rule, according to who? According to the judge. I mean, is it the society that decides this is good and everybody should follow it, or is it the individual? Because we will have a conflict if we say this is the individual. We're definitely going to have a conflict with the interests of the society. And if we say this is like the judge is the entire society, also we're definitely going to have a conflict because like the entire society is not going to be okay with the autonomy of, for example, one individual. I mean, okay. I want to hear from Roberto, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Roberto, who is the judge? Like, okay, autonomy is there, freedom is there. We're created by God. Now we're here. We want to exercise our freedom. Who's the judge? Should we follow? Like, who gives us orders to follow?
I think you know my answer. So yes, there is a God, and God is the judge. In a general and even theological perspective. I think we don't have problem with that, at least with Omar. But my point, like to connect a little bit our ideas, is that, okay, I believe God established, at least in our world as it is right now, civil authorities to act as civil authorities. I am not saying that they are
following
exactly following, or they are good servants of God. I am not saying from that point of view, but yes, even the existence of civil authorities and their roles are influenced, sadly, for the existence of evil. It exists, it is a fact. So they can make rules that are even against the eternal law of God. Yes. Okay. So there is a clear difference. So why can I say that the rules are good or bad? Only if there is an eternal law which dictates what is good and what is bad. If not, there is no way. There is no, I cannot say my moral point of view is going to declare if what these civil authorities are doing what is correct or not. Or even the existence of something that is bad. From my point of view, only we can establish if there is something good and if there is something bad in terms, I don't know, in the light of what is the word? Immovable, that cannot be changed. There is eternal law that God gave. Second, I wanted to say something. Let me see if I remember.
That's okay. But I want to ask you a question about that.
Okay.
But okay. What if that eternal law that is given by God, and the civil authorities are ordered to follow that and exercise that on their society? What if that eternal law conflicts with an individual's autonomy or an individual's interest? Like, for example, not everybody in the society will have the same color. Like, I'm not talking about color, but I'm talking about like their interests.
Different.
In a society, you'll have a lot of, well, not even like a society. Let's say the entire globe, we come from different cultures. Having an eternal law that will be applicable to every society in the world, like, for example, have an eternal law that is ordered to be applied in a place like America, would definitely not be the same eternal law that would be, or at least from my perspective, I think it would be impossible to apply that same law to African communities in Africa. So they, what if that eternal law conflicts with like certain interests of some societies?
I think that God as creator, as the creator, knew perfectly what his creatures needed, how they should behave. Let's say, again, an example, if I am a father and I tell a son, this is good and this is not, I think there is a huge difference between the perspective or the interest of the father and the son. But now we are talking about the creator who knows, who can create with his word. So, it is, I mean, for me it fits perfectly that his perfect law will apply perfectly for his creation. And it doesn't change. We are talking of one person in America or one person in Egypt. Actually, I will give simple examples of transcripts of his eternal law, a description of his eternal law.
Right.
I said at the beginning that this law reflects God's character. So it says, honor your father and your mother. And other words, but if we establish or we think about this commandment, again, I will establish something. If we follow or we obey that, this is good.
Very nice.
If not, this is wrong, or this is bad. If we obey this commandment, okay, if we disobey this commandment, I will introduce this concept. Now, okay, the concept is sin. Sin is transgression of God's law. This is the definition. But what I was going to say is that at the end, if we are going to be judged, clear requirements need to exist. And this is my point. So if we talk about honor the father and the mother, if we talk about you shall not kill, if we talk about, I don't know, do not commit adultery, if we analyze the law, we are going to come, or at least from my side, to see no, we will not have conflicts between individuals.
But okay, I really see what you're saying, but then now, I mean, I totally understand the point about like honor your father and mother, or do not commit adultery. I think those are really good laws. But then there would be other laws, like for example the one that says, here I'm trying to quote scripture, and forgive me if I quote the scripture wrong, but there is I'm not sure if this is a verse, but the one that says you can kill your neighbor if they work on Sabbath. Do you remember that one? Okay, so to me that's like the law of liberty conflicting with some autonomous interest that an individual is making for themselves. Like an individual is going to work on Saturday, and the law of liberty says no, you shouldn't work on Saturday. And as an individual, I want to work on Saturday. Now that's a conflict. Now this is just a small conflict. Maybe an entire society, if we go through this, we'll have like social conflicts, not just individuals conflicting with societies. But then the point is, like Omar here says, well, as a society, we should sit together, make a law, and try to be as inclusive as possible, to include everybody's interests, and we should call that the law. Everybody who's respecting this should exercise their freedom and also their autonomy. And here on this side, you say no, the law is already given. Everybody who fits in this law, that will be good for them. Now what if somebody says no, I don't want to fit in that law? And what's the point of the law if it's just optional? Like if you want to follow it, follow it. If you don't want to follow it, go. But we know that you're gonna have bad things. I mean, to have a law, I think it's important to apply it, and we should have an authority that the entire society supports, and also everybody thinks that they're fully represented in this law.
I think, if I may, I think generally we say that we're human, we are sentient being, we are conscious being. We are much different than other species or other animals. You have a capacity, a process of thinking and able to make choices, I think. And our mind is a little bit more functional than others, I think. But to that context, meaning that there are certain things that basically, they are negotiable things. For example, like the abiding or, let's say the commandment that you mentioned about the parents, for example. I think this is the basic thing. I always think there are things I don't negotiate, I don't discuss even, I don't talk about, because I think this is normally there within the self, within the collective levels. Self, or human, me as the human being, it's abiding and complying with the being nature of the human itself, that you need to respect your parents. Those things that, whether being revealed by the theological revelations or by the humans' rules or social civil authorities' rules, or perhaps, in the end of the day, they are basic foundation of everything to define the humanity itself. To that point, then we move to the other complexities. The topic is not about challenging the basic human stuff. I think we are more on the wider level of the influence level that is coming up. That is self trying to say, like, there is one self saying, like, I have a moral supreme power to influence all the human beings. For example, I don't like a politician. We are having an example of the app that can drive, for example, the TikTok. It has an algorithm that can drive the entire nation to the specific directions. So if it's being in the hand of the politician, those who are really dictators, I think they would drive us in a way that is very much crazy. That's what I'm saying is, in this context, the autonomy has to be existed, because autonomy is the self-aware and the self-legislator as well, meaning that it defined that this thing is bad and this thing is not, shouldn't be, let's say, follow it. And it shouldn't be said like this is the good dimension of the humanity itself to follow up. So to this ideas, autonomy needs to be existed. To this point, autonomy not need to exist. It's to say like, I need to challenge the basic. I need to challenge 1 + 1 = 2. Autonomy does not go with that. I think autonomy is even this. We already have the idea of the let's say free will. Free will is the basic foundation of understanding what is meant to be a human, because there are free will's concepts. There are fated stuff. Fated stuff, it is prescribed things, the oriented directions, what is commonly being defined or reflected by God through it. In the end of the day, autonomy has to exist in every level of those. Even if something godly mentioned, autonomy has to be there, meaning that autonomy has to make itself. Like, for example, I always recommend people, regardless of their beliefs, I recommend people always check before you believe, understand. Like, I'm talking about persuasion rather than the ordering or commanding, abiding the orders, for example. You don't need to follow the orders literally, even if mentioned with a very high trusted sources. you don't need to just comply with. You need to have a level of the persuasion within the orders. That means that there is a conscience existed, there is the self-awareness is imposed there, and that you will be responsible to the choice that you make. And then it will be more convenient when you're being punished on those calls that you have. So that's mean that this is the way we live our life, and this is the way we're going to be master. And I think this is the way we enjoy sense of being human. So.
Okay.
I can answer.
Sure.
I think, okay, first, clearly 100% for sure there is not such a statement as you can kill your neighbor if you want.
I apologize.
It's a very, very literal.
But maybe I can explain what he wanted to refer to
Sure.
not making,
Okay.
so that he doesn't look like he just mentioned.
I just made it up.
I mean, he had a point, but first we need. I want to be clear in something, and this is there is a difference between a moral law, an eternal law, and what we are talking about in this conversation, and other type of laws, whatever you
Whatever you want to call them.
you study or
Right.
refer to as your example. So if we go to the, for example, to the 10 Commandments as Moses recorded, he wrote, it was okay. We have a scroll that Moses wrote, but he, in his story in his writings, he said that it was the voice of God saying these 10 commandments. Also, God writing these 10 commandments with his hand. Actually, if we go more deeply, the scriptures present that to Moses it was being shown, let's call it temple. This is called sanctuary or tabernacle in heaven. It has some parts or some sections, let's call it like that, in heaven. So he saw that, and he was instructed, you are going to do as a tabernacle following that pattern. This is I am telling what the scriptures say. I am telling a story. My point is, there was a very, very special emphasis in both sanctuaries, in the one that Moses built and the one that he saw. And there was in the most relevant place, so for avoiding a deep explanation of this element, but there was a special place where there was that law situated, both in heaven and on earth.
Okay.
It contained the 10 commandments. So I come back again. Moses wrote what he heard, and many people heard by the voice of God himself, and what also God wrote with his hand. I am telling what Moses wrote. Maybe people will not believe it or not, but I am just telling the story of that Moses wrote. But my point is that why it is relevant, because it is very, very different, this moral and eternal law, than, for example, civil laws and ceremonial laws, and even health laws that we find in different parts of scriptures, and especially what you were referring, that were laws for a nation, for a specific nation, and in some characteristics, or not saying those words, because there is not such a statement, you can kill your neighbor if he does such or such thing. But yes, it is true that there were laws about the Sabbath. And maybe if you want to argue or discuss about a controversial point, we need to start with the correct statement, because this is the wrong statement. So I will not continue in that direction.
Okay.
But maybe just to finish. So yes, understanding the context will help us to know that there is a huge real difference.
Yes.
That's why for him it is clear, no, but this is logical. You shall not kill, and not commit adultery. And that's what I believe from my point of view. This eternal law is perfect.
I think
Okay, I wanna say one thing, and then I'll give Umar a chance, and I'll definitely get back to Robert. But okay, so Roberto, like in the 21st century, when we talk about law, usually when we talk, for example, when we talk about universal law, usually what we think about is the UN, like
you mean international organization?
Yes,
Okay.
like the UN. So we think about human rights, and we think about, like, when we think about human rights and laws, we think of, at the international level, we think about the UN. Now, this is like a collective, well, not necessarily including everyone, but then at least like it kind of represents most of what people think. Now, what's the difference between Moses having 10 commandments that were revealed to him individually and then conveying that back to his society, and someone else just exercising their autonomy and creating an app that would influence like millions of people? I mean, I know this is like a terrible comparison, but I really want to make a point here. Like, I think what Moses did was just exercising his autonomy, or at least if I
Theologically exercising is.
I'm talking about him as a human being. I think he had ideas that he wanted to exercise, and that was like his autonomy. He thought about them, and then he wanted to apply the ideas. Now, I'm not saying his ideas are bad. I'm not saying his ideas are good. I'm just saying that these are his ideas, and he wanted to apply them. Now, some of the societies found the ideas to be good and they liked them, and some of them found them bad. Just like somebody creating an app that would influence millions of people, some people will find it really good, and some others will find it bad. Now,
What is the line here?
the line is that okay. The line is that this is just another individual exercising his autonomy. And now, if somebody else says, well, this doesn't apply to me, and there are laws that would definitely not apply to everyone. Again, if you think back about the laws of the UN, if you think about every law in that the UN made, not all the laws apply to every society in the world. Like, for example, in some societies, women do just certain jobs, not all jobs, but they're happy with just doing certain jobs. Now, if you think about the rights that are given to them by the UN, and you compare those rights to what women do in certain parts of the world, you would think that these women are not given any rights. They're not given the UN rights. Now, the same thing, I think that what we find in the Ten Commandments is just some individual who is exercising his autonomy, and whoever says, no, I don't like these laws, whoever says, well, I don't feel like these laws represent me, will be seen as somebody who's not following the law of liberty, and that person will kind of be stigmatized. And I feel like that's
I think I see your views, but in the end of the day, you are not taking any steps. You know, you are just in the same line. You are not still making a point of saying, should we abide those or should we reject or not? In the end of the day, my general perspective on these ideas, whether the Geneva Conventions in 1948, and the 51, I think, the international rules, even the Roma Convention, I think comparing those to the let's say, theologically reflected, rules, or perhaps even some kind of verses that instructing humanity have to do that.
Or somebody creating an app.
Perhaps somebody will, perhaps I am the one telling you that you need to do this. So the line is, we say like, should we follow any rules? I would say no.
Oh.
I would say no. I'm saying like every rule is always meant to be good. I don't mean it like that, because obviously that, for example, we have a democratic process ideas, and then we have dictatorships, let's say process ideas, a rule that made by dictators, for example. So that's the obvious view that not every rule's meant to be objectively good. That's why to have this kind of views, they have to be a self-autonomous existence. That means ourselves able to have self-legislation views, able to master those choices, able to analyze it intellectually, openly, without restrictions, and then it can call upon what is the best from among the best, perhaps, for example. So this is why the autonomy is, I think, like, is very important, not only imposed on the human rules or man-made rules, but also on the God level, to able to analyze the scripture or the holy books, for example, or the Quran or Bible or any kind of holistically revealed, for example. This would be very intellectually, I think, good in the context of theology itself, even if there are some kind of controversially disagreeing point could be conflicting between the self and the God order, for example. But I think this is one of the life journey meant to be things. I think this is one of the choices that we need to make it, and then we need to see later on. And that's the idea of there would be a responsibility and the accountability.
Wait.
Let me just finish,
Sure,
and then you can come with this. I'm just saying this is the obvious, because we don't need to talk about like kind of military language of self-deniability, for example. In the military language, for example, there is nothing called autonomy here. There, you don't make opinion for yourself as a soldier, for example. You just follow the commands and order. So are we militarily humans? I would say no.
But isn't that exactly what the Ten Commandments do? Because like whoever is not following the Ten Commandments will be seen as somebody who is not following the orders of the higher being.
The question was more on the context of why we need to say that 1 + 1 is an equation to generalize to every. Why we need to say like, okay, 10 commandments, if one is being rejected and others are being followed, why that has to be regarded to be either bad human or not a good human. And the thing is, there are rules that existed. Not every rule has to be compared as a good rule. That's what I'm saying, is to overcome about the controversial point that you guys are making it, and to overcome the context of understanding the theological differences that we have, for example, and the intellectual opinion differences that even we have in our discourse now. So to this context is that I would say that I always there in the open, even in the belief levels, self-autonomy has to be existed to my generalizations, and in the human life in a society we need to have not only, for example, we come to the Roberto's apartment, for example, Roberto's home, for example, for the certain things, for example, we need to do it. I would say this is a very basic, let's say, serving, or let's say selfly being good to other people, for example. Do you think this is a good thing when a guest came have to do the 1, 2, 3, for example? I think it's being, let's say, sanctimoniously good. When I say the sanctimonious perspective, that's meaning the having a moral position of saying that this is the good thing that I could do. I could serve it for my guests, for example, or I could tell them to do 1, 2, 3, for example, if they came from home, or if foreigners they came in my community or in our country. I would say like, it has to be, the community has its own character, which is it has rules and it has, let's say, policies that the foreigner can follow up, for example. So do I think this is bad? I'm not saying it's bad, and I'm not saying like every country rules I need to abide it or not. I'm saying is we don't need to left behind the autonomy. We need to go with the autonomy concepts. We need to go with the freedom. We need to live our life processing, because we don't know what will happen and we don't know exactly what already happened in the past. We cannot correct it. So we are all on the master of the presence. That's the human. That's the human context. So that's why we cannot have the final conclusion of saying everything we know the ends and everything we know the beginning of things. I think we don't know the end of the thing and we don't know the beginning of the thing. We are mastering between between the beginning and the end. So that's enjoying the journey on this. I think we need to enjoy our choices that we have. There are multiple choices that existed, but not necessarily we need to have calling upon having multiple choices to have it. And if these rules are not bad, or we need to follow up the other rules or create the new rules or something like that. Or we need to, if you feel like this is human belief is not a good, we need to come up with another human belief concept, for example. We need to call upon, we need to encourage the self autonomy to come up with this idea. Do I think this is good? I think, as I said, I believe in a community and common good. Sometimes I believe it. I believe that when people come together, they have some kind of common interest, things that commonly they do, and that's the sense of the collective is very good. So that's why sometimes I would say autonomy has to be like a discipline autonomy. A discipline autonomy. I hope you can understand the term clearly. When I said a discipline autonomy, meaning that the autonomy itself have to not elude itself. Or
it has to be regulated.
Yeah, at least there are instruction for the principle of self-legislation itself. There has to be a principle. For example, if you don't know what is good and what is bad, how are you going to create the rules that this is good rule and bad rule for the self itself? So that's why the autonomy itself. So the point will come to autonomy is starting to be free from something else.
Well, okay, I actually want to put the same question to Roberto. Roberto, what's the difference between a dictator giving orders to the entire society to follow, and Moses giving the Ten Commandments to the society to follow?
Good question. It also depends of the existence of truth or not. If we say truth is relative or whatever option, the perspective can be his truth, and people like to say those kind of things. But just let's think from the perspective that I am going to present. Let's suppose that there is a truth.
Okay.
Which means if the events occurred in this way, means that the events did not occur in these different ways. In this different way. Because something occurred in a way. I am not saying that I am the one who knows. I am not saying that is the one who created the app or Moses yet. But starting from that base or basic foundation, previous to the question, I emphasized something. Okay, it's different if God has this law in heaven with a very important role. Okay, let's suppose that it exists, that there is a creator, a God, and he rules with not a disorganized kingdom, let's call it like that. He has his kingdom, he created beings, and this is logical. It exists some precepts, some regulations that helps his creatures not living in a disorganized world, not doing whatever. Okay, so there are some specific instructions and points which determine which is good and what is not good. So if that exists, so what Moses presented, okay, I can read it or I can see it, let's say, from the, I don't know, there is a Spanish word, controversial for when you are asking a question with the interest of, but like to go in that direction a little bit, who is this Moses, and why is it truth, right? Okay, but if there is a God, and if there is a law that regulates the world, okay, in this story or in this way, there is a very relevant point about his law. So I repeat, this is in a specific place, very important that God gave, and God wanted to reveal it, and it was not only to Moses first, it was to many other individuals. But let's say, okay, we are evaluating, assessing Moses' words as truth or not, or what is the difference between one person who says something and one person who says another thing. So I think that we agree that at least from the story that I am presenting is very different. It's very different that if God gave this law, if it regulates the universe, it says what is good and what is not, and even if every human being or every creature is response to that law. If I do something, I can determine if it is good or not because of my humanly moral opinion of today that will change tomorrow. No. Because every action, even thought, whatever that I do can be evaluated from, in front of, according to a law which determines which it is good or it is not good. So it was important, I believe, for God to reveal this law to human beings. The fact that it was presented, said by the same voice of God, written by him. Now we argue, I do not believe Moses, but this is a different story. So if there is a truth, now I think we can agree that there is a very, very important difference between something that is stated as it was from God, or something that any person says, I decide to say it is how we are going to live.
If I conclude it, I think autonomy on religion is very controversial, but the freedom on religion is very convenient. What I mean is, freedom is something general, and by freedom we believe, we choose religion that we think is good and commandment that we think is good to follow. But by autonomy, we analyze and we choose what satisfies the self. And I think not only on the other, let's say, Bible context or other, even the Quranically, there are a lot of areas to say, for example, self is very dangerous, and God is in so many areas commanding that we need to not to follow the self. Yes. So I think that means that self always desire. It's like the open desire. If you let's say pathologically there, meaning that you have a very interest of doing something bad, the self always interestingly going there. So that meaning there is no discipline within the self. That means there is no there is no moral position within the self. That's why I'm saying, let educate the autonomy of self. If you see these views, educating the self-autonomy, that means, like I was saying in the beginning, before the autonomy, self-independent autonomy has to be existed. There has to be a civil, or let's say a civil education within the society, meaning that individual, they're being educated, they well instructed, guided a little bit. You may say that's kind of, we need to dilute people first and then we can push them. That's not my intention, but my intention is that self, from very beginning, our self is like, they have to call in a philosophy, it's called tabula rasa. That terms express that human conscious or the human mind, when a child is being born, there is no clue in their mind, even the clue about their parent, clue about the God, clue about the world itself. They don't know anything about that. So they collect data, information about their parent, their surrounding, and that's the idea. That meaning the self itself, it's not a self. The self instead is a copied self. The coping was the environment surrounding it. So that's why I'm saying like we don't need to abide with all rules, because not everything we around surrounding us is good, or not everything being instructed, whether by government or by the civil society levels, or whether by the, if we have a military language being commanded, we don't need to say like this is good always. Even the Geneva Convention itself, not all the countries.
Not everybody is represented.
Not all the countries even they are agree on it.
Right.
Yeah, America itself is not agree on the Geneva Convention. America is not there in the ICC accord. So, to that view is that, do we have a conflicting view on what is good serving humanity? I think yeah, and do we have a different views on what is godly commanded, what is God will be good for the human from the God perspective? Yes, we have a different views on that. I think, is it those differences, is it bad or good? I think diversity, if we believe that diversity is good, I think yes, good. But the diversity has to be managed. Like a discipline, diversity is always good. When it's being mastered, when it's being a little bit oriented, we can say like there are public orientations, public guidelines. For example, when you go to the public places, you don't just like make things up, you know. At least you
don't just go there and
Yeah.
pretend that you're exercising your autonomy, just like
Exactly.
what you do at home.
Exactly. So that's why, if you want to live in a society, otherwise you'll go to the jungle and you go and fight with those other species. So we're in a society, then we need to abide, but abiding is not always, meaning like we should not always just abide the rules. Every rules came. We need to analyze rules.
You should understand first, and then you should abide.
Exactly, persuasion.
Discipline, not order.
That's yeah.
Okay, I really agree with a lot of what you said, but I think we're kind of coming to the end of this. I see what Roberto is saying. I also see what you're saying. I agree with most of what you're saying. The only point that I kind of find difficult to agree with on Roberto's side is that there is a Moses who has the Ten Commandments, and these are not just good. No, they're perfect. Like they're literally perfect, and not just perfect for a certain society. No, they're perfect for everybody. And what if another Moses in a faraway place like Africa, for example, came up with like a different version of the Ten Commandments? I mean, yes, that was true. If you think about, I think you guys know Okonkwo, the novel. I'm not saying that this is actually what happened, but then that is just a reflection of reality. In some parts of the world, you would have somebody else with 10 commandments. And I think the reason I kind of agree with Omar here that, like, as a society, yes, we will have a lot of conflicts, but at least there are a lot of areas of agreements. And if we come to the point where we say, well, we need to have rules that would apply to everybody regardless of what they believe, and as a society, these are literally necessary for us to live together, and everybody who breaks these rules, well, everybody should understand them first, and everybody who breaks them should be punished. And I think that's better than just saying, well, these are the 10 commandments, they were revealed to Moses, and these are perfect not just for my society or that society, they should be applied to the entire globe. I think that's
the absence of a discussion.
I think that will be well, that will create even more problems. Instead of like solving problems, I think that will create problems, because some societies will be like, well, I don't like the 10 commandments, they don't fit.
If I help on this, sorry.
No,
I said I'm saying sorry for taking the Roberto's opinion. I would feel like, the objectivity of the commandment that you are talking about, if the objectivity is serving the humanity, good. It's not about with God is the master of everything. God is the creator of everything, for example. So that's why we need to follow the supreme, even if orders that go against ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that we need to be rebelliously against him. I'm not saying we need to reject we need to select what is good and we need to let others. In the end of the day,
I definitely don't have any problem with that. Like if we select the good ones.
No.
Yes.
I'm saying I'm not motivating for people to have to select someone, let some. I'm saying people have to look at the overall, the objective result of that commandment. What I'm saying is, for example, like you're, let's say there you have, let's say your own life. You are the human, you're believing on a common good, you're believing that you want to do good for the society, you want to serve whoever. You may see them, you may assess them sometimes. For example, you're human, you have some kind of value that you think they're perfect, right? So if I come and say like those let's say personal principles, if I say like you need to follow mine, you will obviously reject it if they are not going with your interest, for example. But that's not the controversial part for me. I need to focus on the finality of the point. It means like, okay, I'm from myself, I say like I want to serve the other humans, the people in my society. You say you want to serve the people in your society. So the objective context is serving. So that's what I'm saying.
So how can we do it? Yes.
Yes, serving from the window, from the main door. It's not my problem. So that's why I'm saying is the overall is that we need to take a step on that context of the having a commandment, whether it's someone see or controversial or not controversial. I'm saying like if it's objective, perhaps theological, I don't understand all, perhaps let's say, but if it's overall the context is serving the objective levels, I sometimes believe more there on the objective levels. I kind of give a space more on the subjectivity of the autonomy, but that it really would put us in a very dangerous, let's say, levels, which is the self-delusion of seeking for the multiplicity of the choices, and self will be believing on the more choice, more freedom. So if there are 10 choice, I would say there would be more freedom. I need to have a 50 choice. Tomorrow I would say, oh no, I need another 50 choice.
I want to have 100.
So yeah, so we are processing or just like redeeming to that line, and it will be more challenging and more problem, I think. So in any commandment, any rules that human need to abide, if the objective is serving goodly, I think it's okay. Whether it's Quranically or Bible or in any context belief, I think. If the objective is good, okay, let's follow.
Okay.
That's it.
This kind of reminds me of the judge thing, but okay. Robert, what do you think? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay,
yes,
sure.
you can ask.
I know. Okay, so okay. First, what do you think about what Umar said? Like, okay, we have a mission, we have an objective. The objective is to serve each other, to serve the entire society. Now, some people might want to do that from the window, others want to do that through the door. But the objective is one, serving the people. Now, if we say there are 10 commandments that are the only way where we should just follow them, and these are the only way that we can serve the people, then that will limit the choices, because some people might say, well, I want to serve the people, but I'm not sure I want to follow that way. I want to go this way and serve the people. Now, according to the 10 commandments, that person is probably misled, because they want to serve the people, but then in a different way that doesn't actually fit the 10 commandments. Or do you think if the objective is one, it doesn't matter whether people follow the 10 commandments or do not follow them?
And we have a problem is that we are discussing about something that we are not sure what is.
That's why I say like I'm not there of fully comprehending the 10 commandment point exactly. So I don't want to make a judgment. That's why I'm thinking if the objective is good, okay, let's go.
Yes. So this is a first point. Maybe we are talking. Maybe if I just know what are these commandments, I could give like say about it in like such a deep context as we are presenting here. Second, it also depends on the concept that I mentioned before, truth. Truth. You told me, oh, should others follow it? Should it be for the society? Maybe about this guy who appeared with another list of 10 commandments and those things. Again, I would say, if it is not truth, I am not saying that I know the truth. I am not saying that I am the one.
Exactly, yeah.
But if something is truth, it is truth. And we come back to the origins. If there is a God who created a world, if he rules with some standards which exist, if he decides to present them to Moses, it can be truth or not, and that's it. Now, if I go to judge after that, okay, let's say that it is truth. Whatever I
That's a big
say, whatever I okay, no, I prefer this different for my society, such and such and such. We have the problem, but we do not know what we are talking about. But let's put it a little bit in the context. It presents to love God, and it presents to love others, like the principles that are in the Ten Commandments. So if I mean, we can summarize all the Ten Commandments in these two groups, is what I am saying. So
I didn't understand. You tell like to love God is one option, and to love the other meaning
No.
what?
there are two groups within the Ten Commandments. Some are regarding our love towards God, and some towards others.
Other
For example, I said
Other
honor your
human
other
beings.
people.
Other human
Others,
beings.
yes, other human beings. I was going to say your neighbor, but to avoid
any other
logical term, but it would be clear actually. So thank you. But
Okay.
my point is that, okay, now knowing that, I come back to the point. If this is truth, okay, if there is a God who created, and there are rules which are the best for his creatures, my answer would be happily yes. I mean, it has complete sense that this is an universal set of rules that will make people happy, free, and will be the best for them. If one society decides, for example, to make it easy, okay, let's allow to commit adultery, one of the commandments. This is a civil,
Which happens a lot.
I am saying in
act.
terms of rules, but yes, a civil commandment, let's say. Civil authorities and societies, they live by norms and practices that are against those commandments. Does it change that they were perfect and the best for the society? If it is true what I am saying from the beginning, for me it is simple to answer this. It will not change. So.
In the end of the day.
Okay, wait, just a moment. So Roberto says, well, if the Ten Commandments are true, like if this is the truth, it doesn't really matter whether people follow them or not. The truth is there, and it will be there even if people don't follow it. Is that what you're saying, Roberto?
What I am saying is that this is for their well-being, even if they accept it or not. What I am saying is that actually, if it is true, they are going to be judged to explain it or to show an example. Today I commit an action, whatever action. It can be good
Or
it-
bad.
or bad, let's say. This law will determine if it is or not.
Why don't just like grouping things now? Like why we don't say like, okay, rules, commandment will be applied to those who believe that religion, for example. For example, like let's say from Quranic perspective, should the religious orientation in Islam, for example, need to be applied to the non-believers? No, that cannot be applied for them. So abiding cannot be. So the legitimacy of the application of those rules goes with the believers or those who believe. To that same idea, I think the commandments, I think it's more on the context. I'm not sure about it. I think in more on the context of people who believing on the religion that commanding. So if you believe in that religion, then yes, you need to abide to certain understandings and certain views.
Yes, I understand.
I just want to indicate that certainly every, let's say, scripture or religion has their very, when you bring the, let's say, intellectual views, there are many controversial areas out there. And I don't think it will even make weak views on that religion. I think it gives space more on the human to think and discuss more, understand more, make a deeper analysis in that belief and understand it. It does not mean like that is wrong or that evil or that's bad, and then the conclusion is there and today, and then we just close the door on that context, for example. No, I'm just saying is, yes, I can see the differences that you guys are even intensifying the context itself. I think let just proceed to understand that we all human, and our existence is more, let's say, our ontological existence, because autonomy, ontologically, it will have a controversial point. Autonomy, intellectually weak on the social, let's say, abiding process, because the autonomy more on, I think, like self-living in a jungle, outlaws. And I would say it's good when that self-conscious, educated, that's good to live there and have the moral principles, moral values to able to make the opinion on those areas. I'm making the conclusion, my friend. So
okay. I really wanna give Roberto like 40 seconds maximum to kind of conclude his final points. And after that, we should conclude this because we're kind of running out of time. But it's been a really interesting conversation.
Yes.
We should probably make a third part.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Robert.
Okay.
So I think, again, I'll kind of just reiterate what you said earlier, which is that truth, or what the Ten Commandments say, is the truth. And whether people follow it or not, if they follow it, it'll be good for their well-being. And if they don't follow it, that doesn't make it not true. Is that kind of what you're saying earlier?
To change maybe the last phrase you said, if they do not follow it, it will not make it
untrue.
Okay. I didn't say that, but I agree.
Okay.
So you told me to allow me to summarize.
Yes.
To conclude. Okay. So what was said from the beginning is that there is a law or liberty that is above everything, and it describes God's character. It actually shows His will. In this eternal law is described what is good and what is not good. Human beings created were also supposed to live in the terms of this perfect law. And this law is not the same as maybe civil specifications, even religious specifications, as we said, should it be followed for these believers or these other believers? No, or at least from what I am presenting here, it is just those rules that govern the universe and which allow God's creation and His kingdom or the universe to be in order and to work well, perfectly well. So yes, I think we at least should know about it, because this is for our good.
Exactly.
Okay, so earlier I was talking about making a third part, but okay, so maybe the third part will be about which one? Well, okay, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but then maybe the third part will be about which one is better. should we as a society sit together and make a law regardless of the sources that we use, or should we follow the supreme law that was revealed maybe to a prophet or someone else? I think that would be an interesting third part. But for now, this is the end of this second part. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.